Philosophical Instructions. An Introduction to Contemporary Islamic Philosophy by Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi. Instructor Dr. Muhammad Ali Shomali.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-Ali al-azim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin wa sahbihi al-muntajabin. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. Today we are going to discuss about the lesson 22, and that's about the concept of being. If you remember, in our last session we talked about the concept of being, and we said that the concept of being is one of those concepts which are self-evident. So we do not need to have any definition for this concept, and every human being can very easily understand the meaning of being or existence in their own languages, of course. They may have different names for these, different terms for these, but the concept itself is very obvious and self-evident. Today we are going to address some other issues related to the concept of being or existence. First of all, about the unity of the concept of existence or being. There has been a discussion, especially among theologians and to some extent among philosophers, but it was mostly among the theologians, regarding the unity of the concept of being or existence. For example, there have been some people who had the view that whenever we have something like, for example, human beings, like, for example, different sorts of animals or plants and so on and so forth, the concept of being which is applied to these natures or these qualities must be different when it is applied to the other one. For example, if I say al-insan mawjudun, man or human being exists or is existent, the concept of existence here is different when I say a rose flower exists. So existence looks the same in both cases, but there are two different meanings of the same term. So you have a term which is apparently identical, but it has different meanings. When you say a rose flower exists, existence means existence of rose flower, a sort of existence which is suitable, which is relevant to rose flower. But when I say a human being exists, existence here is something suitable for human being. So these two existences are different. So these people have had the idea that whenever we have the concept such as existence or being as a predicate for different qualities, for different mahiyat, in each case the concept has a different meaning other than another case. In other words, the concept of existence is related to the very nature or quality that has been put in our proposition as subject. So you can never have identical predicates when you have different subjects. This is a very important view, not because it's strong, no, because it has many implications. If we accept such a view, then the whole point in philosophy will be damaged, will be lost, because we are always looking for general and universal qualities of existence. But this view stops us from such an inquiry, from such an investigation. Some people have had a more limited version of this. Instead of saying that we have many meanings for the concept of existence, as many as quiddities that we have, as many as natures that we have, as many as mahiyat that we have, they had a more limited version. They said, no, we have only two meanings for the concept of existence. One, when it is used for contingent beings. Second, when it is used for necessary being. In other words, when we apply the concept of being or existence to God the Almighty, it has one meaning. And when we apply it to everything other than God, all creatures which are contingent, which are not necessary, human being, different, for example, animals, different living beings, including plants, non-living beings, spiritual things, angels, whatsoever. In all these cases, it has one meaning. But when it is applied to God the Almighty, it has another meaning. So this is a more limited version. It's like the previous version in having two or more, or it's better to say it has more than one meaning for the concept of being. But the difference is that they have limited it to two. They had, the first version says as many as different types of being that we have, different types of quiddities that we have. So for example, if we have 1 million sorts of quiddities, they say we have 1 million plus 1 meanings for being. 1 million for contingent beings which have quiddities, and 1 for God. So it will be 1 million plus 1. But the second view says that no, just one concept is for God the Almighty. The second is for all other beings which are contingent, which are possible, which are created. What has been the reason? What has been the real motivation beyond these two views? Why people, and some of them had very good philosophical understanding, though they were theologians, but they were very good in understanding also philosophy. So why they were forced to develop such views? The author says that the reason was that these people were faced with differences in the world. They saw that there are many different sorts of beings, different types of existence. It's very true that human beings are different from, for example, monkeys, from other sorts of beings, from angels, from mountains, from flowers, from God. So you have a very wide variety of beings. But what was the confusion in their mind was that they thought these differences must be reflected, must be represented, must be echoed in the very concept of being. They thought that because these beings are different, So the concept of being must be different. But this is not true. The instances are different, but the concept can be identical, can be unequivocal. The concept can be the same. We should distinguish between the concept and the reality. The concept can be one, but the instances which exist outside can be different. I can say A is existent, B is existent, C is existent, and A and B and C may be different things. But when I say existent, I mean the same. I mean that these all are real. This is the case also about the second version. It's very true that the reality of God the Almighty is totally, absolutely different from the realities of His creatures. But this does not mean that we should have two different concepts for being or existence. The concept of being or existence or al-wujud or mawjud in Arabic are unequivocal. It means that the same concept can be applied to different things with the same meaning. But whether these things are at the same level of perfection or not, it's something irrelevant to this concept. This concept just says that this is something real. When I say A exists or A is existent, it means that A is real. However, Muslim philosophers have developed some arguments to refute these two versions. One is about the first version, which holds that we have different meanings for the concept of existence because we have different natures, different quiddities. For example, as I said, if we have 1 million different sorts of quiddities, so we have 1 million plus 1 meanings for this concept. 1 million for quiddities and 1 for God. So philosophers have said, Muslim philosophers, that if this was true, if this were true, then it would lead to the assumption that whenever we have a simple proposition or a simple question, which means that you have a subject and the predicate is the concept of existence. For example, when we say al-insan mawjudun, man is existent. This is called al-haliyya al-basita, or simple question or simple proposition. It means that you are not saying something as a quality for the subject. You are not saying, for example, human being is valuable or something like that. You are just saying something about the existence of the very subject. So it's called simple proposition or simple question. But whenever you have compound proposition, al-haliyya al-murakkaba, it means that you have a quality as predicate, which is predicated to the subject, of the subject. Okay. Muslim philosophers, to refute the first version, have said that if that were true, it would lead to the assumption that we could never have simple propositions. Because whenever we have simple proposition, the concept of existence, which is used as a predicate, must involve in itself the concept of subject, because you say that existence in each case involves the nature or the quiddity of its subject. So when I say al-insan mawjudun, this mawjudun is different from when I say, for example, al-faras mawjudun, horse is existent. So we cannot have any simple proposition, because every simple proposition after investigation becomes clear that it has a sort of whattish dimension, a sort of meaning which is related to the subject, to the nature, to the mahiyya. So this is something that every human being by common sense refutes. We very easily realize the difference between simple propositions and compound propositions. We understand that when we say al-insan mawjudun, or man is existent, and then we say, for example, angels are existent, or mountain is existent, or rose flower is existent, we understand that the concept of existence in all these cases has nothing to do with the subject, with the particularities of the subject, with the specifications of the subject. So this is, as I said, not really needed, because it's very obvious that the concept of existence is identical, it's univocal or unequivocal. But just to help those people who have been confused to wake up and understand the difference between being as a univocal or unequivocal concept on the one side, or being as equivocal concept on the other side. For refutation of the second version, which holds that the concept of existence in all contingent beings is the same, but when it comes to the necessary being, it becomes different. So they don't say that, for example, we have 1 million plus 1 meanings for this concept. They say we have 2 meanings for this concept. One is for God, the second is for all other things, which are creatures, which are contingent beings, mumkinat. The reason for Muslim philosophers to refute this is that if the concept of existence had 2 different meanings, it would lead to a very bad implication. For example, when I say al-insan mawjudun, man is existent. If mawjud means here contingent being, so this cannot be predicated of God. So this mawjudun cannot be predicated of God. I cannot say Allah mawjudun and I bring the same mawjud which was the predicate for al-insan mawjudun. So when I say man is existent, this existent cannot be predicated of God, because for God existent has different meaning. Okay, now the question is, if this existent which was predicate for al-insan cannot be predicated of God, so its contradictory concept, its negation, must be capable of being predicated of God. So when I say man is existent, this existent cannot be predicated of God, so non-existent must be predicated of God. So we must say God is non-existent. And this is impossible. God is definitely existent. You may say non-existent here has its special meaning, Non-existence means non-existent in a contingent way. In other words, when we say God is non-existent, it means non-existent as human beings. So it's compatible with being existent as a necessary being. But the whole point here in this argument is this, that we human beings never distinguish between negations or non-existence when it is related to God or other things. When we say something is non-existent, we understand only one meaning. So it must be the same with the existence. If the contradictory side, the contradiction, the negation has one meaning, so the other side must have also one meaning. In other words, this is just to awake the common sense. Otherwise, if someone wants to insist that existence, when it's applied to God, is different, so he may say that non-existence also is different. We have two different concepts for non-existence, for Adam, for nothingness. The whole point here in this argument by Muslim philosophers is to awake our common sense. When you say existence is related to contingent beings, so you must be able to negate that from God. But can you negate existence from God? And can you distinguish between two sorts of negation of existence? Or whenever we say something does not exist, we automatically understand that that is not nothing, that's not real. Not that that is something which may be existent, but not in the way that we were discussing about. So this is just to awake our common sense. In any case, the author says that if someone thinks carefully and is not affected by the challenges and the confusions which have been put forward by those people, he will not be in great need for refutation of these ideas. It's very clear. The other part of our discussion today is about two different sorts of the concept of existence. Sometimes we use existence or wujud in its customary and in its ordinary sense, and that is a concept which can be independently understood, and it can be predicated of any subject. For example, we say this book exists, or this desk exists, or this desk is existent, this book is existent. So the concept of wujud or its derivative mawjud, and in English existence or existent, are the ordinary concepts of wujud, and we understand it very easily without any difficulty. The other sense in which wujud is used is when it is used as a dependent concept, as a concept which is relational, a concept which is just possible to be understood when it occurs between two different things. So for example, when I say A is B, this is a sort of wujud, but relational wujud. You cannot understand this is unless you have two things like A and B, and consider the relation between these two, and then you say that, okay, A is B. But is in itself cannot be understood, and it has no use, no benefit. So these are two different senses of the concept of existence. And Sadruddin Shirazi, Mullah Sadra, has declared that these two senses of wujud are totally different, and this means that the concept of wujud, when it is applied in these two different senses, it's applied to do different usage, the concept is not the same. So it's not a univocal concept, it's equivocal. Yes, in each sense, when it is applied to its individuals, it's univocal. But these two senses are separate, and the concept of wujud either has to indicate A, the first, and that is substantial or independent concept of existence, or B, and that is dependent or relational concept of existence. So this is that something we should learn from Sadruddin Shirazi. But unfortunately, there have been some people who thought that in both cases, in both versions, A and B, wujud is used in the same sense. So they have not distinguished between wujud being an independent concept and wujud being a dependent concept. And not only they have not distinguished between these two senses of wujud, but also they have tried to draw some implications out of it. So they have said that as we have in the real world, in external world, in objective world, something which is possible to be referred to as existence when it is a predication, it's also possible to refer to the world and say that this is something corresponding to relational existence, like is. In other words, when I say A exists or A is existent, so I can refer to that reality and say this is existence. They say, when I say A is B, I can also refer to is and say this is correspond to something outside. So for example, when I say this flower is red, so there is flower outside, there is a redness, and there is. So they have been looking for something that can correspond, can be parallel to this is, which is in our proposition. But this is something which is not acceptable. We cannot say that in reality we have three things. We have subject, we have predicate, and we have this is or relational existence. It's only a unity or union between the subject and predicate in the simple proposition in al-haliyat al-basita. The concept of subject and the concept of predicate are united in reality. So al-haliyat al-basita means that the subject is there, the subject exists. So although there is a term such as is, or for example in Arabic kana, in other language, for example in Farsi, asked, is there, but there is nothing other than the subject itself. When I say al-insan yakunu mawjudan, or man is existent, or this man is existent, or in Farsi say insan mawjud ast. So there is nothing other than this single existence there. And if it is compound proposition, al-haliyat al-murakkaba, like saying this man is tall. Again, although I have something as man and something as tallness, but I don't have anything corresponding to is other than man and tallness. So there is a man and there is a quality for that man. There is nothing corresponding to that is. So this is something that we should always bear in mind, that although these propositions, when are true, they correspond to the real world, but it doesn't mean that for any single term we must find some independent equivalent or correspondent in the real world. There may be three parts in the proposition, but in the external world there may be just one reality. Like when I say A is existent, so there are three terms, but in reality we have one existence which is A. So this is something that we shouldn't get confused. This is also the case about negative sentences. When I say A is not existent, again in the mind of the person, the speaker, there is A, there is the predicate, for example, existent, and there is that relational existence is, and there is negation, not. So there is a sort of relational existence which is negated. So you must consider, you must understand, you must conceive in your mind this relational existence, and then you can negate it. So you say A is not existent. So you have this is there, but is negated. But in the real world, I have nothing. It's not the case that in the real world I have A, I have existent, I have is, I have not, and then I say that A is not existent. No, in the real world there is nothing. So I say A is not existent. But in the proposition that I have in mind, is there. Even if it is negated, but it's still there. It's something that relates the subject to predicate, but in a negative sense. So this is something very important. The author says that the mistake which has been committed here is the same mistake that frequently happens, and that is to have a confusion between concept and individuals, between concepts and instances. We shouldn't apply something which is related to concept to its individuals if it is something which is for the concept itself. For example, if a concept is universal, we shouldn't think that the individuals are also universal. Or if the concept is mental, we shouldn't think that the individuals are also mental. Or from the other side, if individuals are different, we shouldn't think that we have different concepts. We may have different individuals, but the same concept. We may have different human beings with different talents, with different capacities, with different characteristics, but we may have still one concept of human being. So this confusion, this failure in distinguish between concept and its individuals is a very fatal mistake or error that frequently is committed. So this is something that the author warns us and asks us to be careful about this matter. Another strange thing is that some people in the West have denied the independent concept of being as a substantial, as a nominal concept. And this is very strange. This is something that we clearly understand, and we can easily in any language have sentences or equivalent to sentences such as A exists or A is existent. And here existence is used as a predicate. So how can we deny existence as an independent concept? The author says that maybe this person have denied the existence of such concept because in their own language they didn't have something equivalent to this or something synonymous to this. So in those languages that they have two different terms, one for independent existence and the other for dependent existence, the problem is very easy. For example, in Farsi, in Persian, we have ast and we have hast. Ast is to indicate dependent or relational concept of existence, and hast is to indicate substantial or independent concept of existence. So in Farsi we don't have any problem, and every person, even lay people, very quickly distinguish between these two different concepts. But in some languages they may use the same term and the same noun or verb for both usage or for both senses of existence. So here people may have some difficulty in recognizing the independent existence or dependent existence. They may deny one of them in the favor of the other. But to be just to both of these, we must know that these two are really two different senses of being. And as Sadruddin Shirazi said, when being is used in these two different senses, is used as equivocal concept, not as a univocal concept. The other part of this discussion is about wujud and mawjud, existence and existent. You know that in Arabic we are very much capable of getting and drawing different derivatives from the same root. For example, here we have wujud, and then from wujud we can have many derivative forms like mawjud. So mawjud is something which has wujud. So wujud means existence and mawjud means existent. So this is something that is not very difficult up to this level. But it gets sophisticated or complicated when we know that wujud in ordinary linguistic sense means to be. So wujud means to be. So some people have said that if wujud means to be, so we cannot say that this is a wujud, this book is a wujud, this book is a being or existence, or God is an existence or a being. So these people have said that we can only say these are mawjud, means something which has wujud. We cannot say these are wujud, because if we say these are wujud, means these are to be, and to be is not possible to be predicated of a subject. You cannot say, for example, A is to help, A is to stand. You can say A is standing, A is helping or helpful, but you cannot say A is to help. So these people say we cannot say this book is an existence. We cannot say God is an existence, God is wujud. We can only say mawjud. And this causes problem, because when we say mawjud, it means this is something which has wujud. So in itself must be separate, must be different from wujud, and wujud becomes accidental to it. So it makes problems for us. But the author says that we should know that this is not a linguistic problem. Yes, according to grammar or according to the syntax or morphology in each language, you may have limitations, you may have restrictions. For example, here we have a problem maybe according to Arabic morphology, that we cannot say, for example, this is wujud. Maybe we have this problem, maybe not. Maybe wujud is more general and it can be even predicated of the essences, not only of the acts or states of affairs. But this is not important. What is important is to know that when we say existence or being, means reality. It means reality. So the question is whether God is a reality or not, whether this book is a reality or not, whether this desk is a reality or not. Of course these are realities. So we can say these are wujud. Allah is wujud. This book is wujud. And if we say this is mawjud, it makes no difference. Mawjud does not necessarily mean that it must be something which is far from wujud, and wujud is accidental to it. No, mawjud means something which has reality. In respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reality is very essence of it, very nature of it. So God's essence is nothing other than wujud, because there is no quiddity there. There is no mahiyya in its usual or customary sense, ordinary sense. Mahiyya for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is His wujud. There is no separation there. For us, yes, mahiyya is different from wujud. If we consider our mahiyya, it doesn't mean that we must be there. We may have the same mahiyya, but cease to exist. So this is very important aspect of this lesson. So you shouldn't be too much focused in linguistic points. It's very important to take care of linguistics, but you should know that you cannot solve philosophical problems only by attending to linguistic problems. Something may linguistically be allowed, but not philosophically. And something may be linguistically not allowed, but philosophically maybe allowed. So this is something which we must bear in our mind. At the end, the author says that the conclusion is that the philosophical concept of existence is equal to reality. So existence means reality, and the opposite to existence means non-reality. There is no reality when there is no existence. And when there is no existence, if I say there is no existence at all, so it means that I have negated any sort of existence, whether the existence of God or existence of his creatures. And this shows that the concept of existence is univocal. And when you refute it, when you reject it, when you negate it, every individual being is negated. And when I say that non-existence is not true, I say that there is something, there is a reality, then this reality is possible to be actualized in different beings. So this concept does not mean that certain type of existence must be there. This again is another confirmation, another proof for the idea that the concept of existence is general, is universal, is univocal. Because when you say existence is there, it's not written there, it's not implied there that it is existence of a certain quiddity. Unlike what some people have had in their mind, that wujud is only possible to be applied to certain nature or at most to all creatures. And wujud cannot be predicated of God in the same sense that it is predicated of creatures. But what we say is that wujud is always used in the same sense. The concept is the same. The realities are different. The individuals are different. But the concept is the same. So this is one point that we discussed in this lesson. The other point was about two different senses of wujud. One is the familiar, the ordinary one. The other is the relational concept of wujud, which looks like huruf in Arabic. In Arabic, you know that words are one of three types. Either they are verbs, or they are nouns, or they are huruf. Huruf are like prepositions, but not exactly the same. So these are those concepts which cannot be independently understood, and they are there to serve as a link, as a relation between two or more concepts. And the only time that we can understand them properly is to understand them with those sides or parties of that link. And then we discussed about the concept of wujud and mawjud, and that the linguistic here is not the final solution. We must know that if we mean by wujud reality, so we can say God is wujud and everything real is wujud. And wujud is not necessarily meaning to be. No, wujud can mean existent, can mean reality, can mean being. And then in this sense there may be no difference between wujud and mawjud. Allah wujud and Allah mawjud. Allah is a reality and Allah is real. So we cannot say that because Allah is mawjud, so reality is accidental or additional to his essence. No, Allah is real and Allah is reality. It makes no difference. So we finish this lesson, and inshallah we follow our discussion about ontology in next session. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.